Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Expat Diaries podcast, Costa Rica edition. And today I am here with David McNeil. And what an interesting story this gentleman has made from Canada onto a boat, down to Costa Rica, all of the fun in between. And I just really wanted to sit and visit with him for a while and get his story, let him share with us what that journey looked like for him and what they're doing right now. So welcome, David. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Robin. It's nice to be here.
I love your picture wall behind you, the black and white photos on the block wall. That's awesome.
Yeah, we've got all of our friends and family from back in Canada up on the wall, and a lot of our friends from here in Costa Rica up on the wall. Just a constant reminder of all the people we love back home. So it's really nice.
I do. I love that a lot. It's funny because when we were talking about in our journey to move down, I'm like, okay, so we have so many pictures. What are we going to do with all of these? Because I was like so worried about the humidity and will they be okay, whatever. And so a lot of them I'm scanning in digitally just so that I have them, and then I'll decide what I do with them once we have the walls up. So that'll be fun. Yours look amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we love it.
I love it. Okay, so let's talk about, you are a Canadian.
I am.
And life in Canada was what for you? What did you do there?
Life in Canada was great. We lived in, my wife, Belinda, and I met in Toronto. She's originally from South Africa. We met back in 2012. We were married in 2018 here in Costa Rica. But I'm born and raised in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. And I've lived in Toronto for about 26 years, and I moved to Toronto because it's the entertainment mecca of Canada. And so I work in the entertainment industry, and I've lived and worked in Toronto and worked as an actor and worked as a digital media producer and voiceover artist, and just, I had a greit life in Toronto, and we still go back and forth.
That's an interesting life. So in Canada, you were voice actor, so you did voiceovers. Do you do, I think about this a lot because I listen to audiobooks a lot. Do you do that too?
I haven't got into the audiobook world yet. I've, no, that's the short answer. I have not yet. It's an interesting world. I've mostly done a lot of commercial work.
Yeah.
And, radio and TV spots and that sort of thing. And then I also produce a lot of branding and often use, when I produce for clients, I'll often do the voiceover as well. It's like a total package kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting because I listen to so many audiobooks, and there was one that I was really interested in listening to. And then as soon as the person who was reading the book, their voice came on, I was like, oh my God, can I get through this? Because their voice was not that it was like horrible, but it was just not the timbre that I am comfortable listening to. And I was just like, this better be a really great story. This had better be really good because I'm gonna have to tolerate this voice. So it's super interesting to me, the people who go into that version of voice acting as well. So, okay. So you guys met, but you didn't get married till you were in Costa Rica.
That's right. Yeah. We decided to get married in Costa Rica. Here's what happened. We started talking about
wedding, right? So then you guys still lived in Canada at that time, and it was a destination wedding.
It was a destination wedding, exactly. And so Belinda said, well, any thoughts on where you'd like to get married? And I said, well, I've heard so many great things about Costa Rica, but I've never been there. And she had not either. And she's traveled quite a bit because she worked in the travel industry. She had never been to Costa Rica. And so we, through a company called might as well do a shout out, through a company called destinationweddings.com, we found the Rio Palace, which is about 20K from here, or 15 miles from here. And we decided that we would have our wedding there on the beach. And we invited a bunch of friends and family down, and we think a total of 30 people flew all the way down to Costa Rica to celebrate our special day with us. And, the week after we got married here, we had some time on our own because we stuck around for another week. And we toured around, and we did some diving because we're both scuba divers, and We made our way over to Playa del Coco, which is where we now live. And we went out on, I guess what people call a booze cruise on a catamaran, and met some real estate agents, and never really thought much about that. But we went back to Canada and resumed our lives there. And then something came up, and we decided, you know what, maybe there's an opportunity to make a big shift and live in paradise. So we started talking to people and started talking to these real estate agents that we had met on this boat, and the rest is history, as they say. You know?
Okay, but that wasn't it. Like, you guys were on a boat for a while, though. Like, you lived on a boat for a while.
Yeah, we lived. And this was part of the move to Costa Rica. So basically, what happened was we owned a beautiful condo in downtown Toronto, overlooking the harbor front, and it was just a spectacular condo. We couldn't believe our good fortune that we were able to purchase it. But within about 2.5 years, it was worth twice what we had bought it for. And we thought, well, maybe we should just cash in on this and see if we can, follow our dreams earlier than we thought we could. So that's what we did. And then part of that was, okay, well, now we don't have a home base in Toronto, and we have to go back and forth because we weren't quite ready to just, become Costa Rican residents or citizens or whatever. So we thought, well, how could we live in Toronto and cut our costs? And we knew a bunch of friends. We had a bunch of friends who had lived on boats, were live-aboard people. So we knew the, how can I put it, the unromantic side of it, the work and what it entailed. And we thought, let's do that. So we took some of the cash that we had from selling our condo, and we bought a boat, and we lived on that boat for 5 years, 5 summers. How big was that? It's a 41-foot boat.
It's a good size.
It's a good size. It's still, we did that for 5 summers, and it's restrictive.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was amazing, but and it was a nice. We ticked that off our bucket list, and we had a lot of fun while we did it. But we didn't think that we could do it like for the long haul.
It's funny because this couple that I just interviewed for the podcast, they kind of, and they're Canadians also, kind of just did the same thing, except for on a boat, not on a boat. They transformed a bus into an RV, and they have been literally, they drove from Canada. They're in Costa Rica right now, and they're heading down to Argentina. And they're like, there's lots of room. And they're probably, I would say, probably not much bigger than 40 foot. I don't know how long. I'm sure he told me how long the boat was, but that's their whole living is that.
Yeah. And they're going to have a lot of fun. But, part of that is it's living on a boat and living in an RV, and is that you have to manage a lot of things that you don't think about much when you live in a house.
Right.
Like your septic situation, That's,
You're right. There's a lot of things that you have to be like, I have to think about this now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, And, if things back up in your boat,
Yum.
It's not a great thing. That's happened.
Okay, so then we were we're living the summers on the boat, and then were you spending any time in Costa Rica?
Yeah, well, what we did was we bought a condo in Costa Rica here in Playa del Coco in a neighborhood called Las Palmas. We had a 2-bedroom condo, and we were living there 6 months of the year, and then we were living on the boat 6 months of the year. So that was our back and forth until the pandemic hit, and that was disrupted.
So then at that point, were you in Costa Rica at that time, or were you in Canada?
No, we were in Costa Rica. And I remember it was like yesterday because it just reminded me of one of those scenes from the Vietnam movies where everybody gets out on the last chopper. It was just, was it March 20th, I think? Mm-hmm. 2020. I think that week that it was the high season. And I remember going out because we have a French bulldog named Ruby, and I'd take her out for a walk at night. And you could see all the way down the road that we lived on, just nothing but cars, with all the tourists who come in and rented cars, or the people who were expats who lived here for part of the year. And then, all the governments started calling out saying, come back to Canada. Prime Minister, U.S. President, everybody was like, come back. And so the next day, I remember taking Ruby out for a walk, and there was one car on the street where there'd been, 100 the day before.
Right.
And so we decided to stick around because we owned our condo.
Mm-hmm.
And our situation was if we went back to Canada, we'd have to live on the boat. It was March, too cold to put a boat in the water. The marina was not an essential service either. So, we were in limbo. So either we went back and stayed with family, and how long is that going to be? I remember at the time, everybody kind of thinking, this is going to be a month.
6 weeks.
And
6
yeah,
weeks.
6 weeks, whatever. And so we thought, you know what, we're comfortable here. Let's just hang out here.
Yeah. Great idea.
It turned out to be a great idea. So much so that I almost had survivor guilt. I felt so badly for some of our friends back home, especially some of our single friends who lived in condos and were, cooped up there for a long time.
Well, not only that, I mean, it got so super restrictive. I think for Canada, more than almost any other country, it just got so super restrictive that it was unbelievable that it would get to that point. I don't think anybody believed it would have gotten to the point that it did, and the restrictions that were so tough in place. It's so funny because I have a friend that lives in Indiana, and my home in the U.S. is in Missouri. And she worked for me at the time. She was working remotely. And so she had come in for a business meeting that we had. And she was like so shocked because she's like, there's kids at the ballpark playing Little League. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, not in Indiana. And I'm like, well, you're kind of in a red state. They're outside, they're playing. If they're going to get cooties, they're going to get cooties. There's like nothing they're healthier being outside playing Little League than they are stuffed in their house, suffering from whatever cooped up syndrome ends up with them at the long time. And she's like, I just can't believe I can see people outliving their lives here. And I'm like, it was different by state in the U.S. It literally would break down by state and what mandates came down state by state.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I can only, I can't even really speak to what it was like back in Canada at the time or in Toronto at the time because I wasn't there.
Right.
So a lot of it's kind of, what I've what I've heard after the fact or saw in the news and stuff. But, there was some weird stuff happening here, some weird rules that went into place that we, for a while, all the condos or all the swimming pools and the condos were taped off with police tape, and we weren't allowed to go in our pools and stuff. And I guess a lot of people complained and thought, oh, well, how can you get COVID from a pool? It wasn't about that. It was just trying to make our town seem like a not very pleasant place to go on vacation. They were just trying to keep people out of town, right, to stop the spread.
Well, and we had gone down to Florida. Well, we'd actually had, so my business partner she turned 50 in 2020. So it was going to be her 50th birthday. And we had, before any of this happened, we had spent like 8 months planning a trip to Italy for her birthday. And so as it started, and Italy was like the first country to shut down, right? Like that. So we're like, well, we better make another plan. So then we're like looking at Portugal and we're looking at other countries, and then they all just start closing down. And we're like, okay, I guess we're not going anywhere. And so another one of our friends owned a vacation rental in Florida, a VRBO, Airbnb, whatever, a home. And the hotels, I'm trying to think which way it was. I think the hotels were allowed to be left open, but the Airbnbs and the VRBOs were not allowed to be, you weren't allowed to rent them out.
Yeah.
And we ended up making a trip down to Florida for her birthday instead of Italy. Like it was worse than a consolation prize. And we couldn't go on the beaches.
Yeah.
So they had the beaches blocked off. So the access to the beaches blocked off. So you couldn't be on the beaches, which was craziness, but.
Yeah, they did that here as well. I mean, there were times you could go to the beaches. You could go early in the morning, and I forget what they were looking back, but yeah, there were all kinds of sort of random rules and stuff that were put in place because I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a world leader during that period because I don't know what I'd do.
No, seriously, there were no right decisions and no wrong decisions. They were all just like, in hindsight, it's so funny because I was a mortgage lender during the mortgage meltdown, right? And so every day was a new experience during that time, right? Every day was something new. I mean, everything from FHA and HUD and what their rules were and the Moody ratings on the mortgage-backed security. I mean, there was just like so much stuff that just happened every day. And I was like right in the mix of all of it because that was my career. And then we were villainized during that time. that we were the reason that the global economy was crashing. All mortgage lenders were all just crooks and thieves and liars or whatever. And so when you live through it, it's one thing, right? Like you go through every day is different, and then you forget yesterday and you move on to tomorrow and you move on to the next day. And then I went back, I was watching that movie, The Big Short. I don't know if you watched it.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I had PTSD during that thing. I was like, oh my God. And then I forgot about that stuff. I had forgotten about so much of that stuff. And I think about like after the fact, when some of these movies are made about what this was like, we will all have forgotten so much crap that we went through on the day to day during this global pandemic, that happened, that we will it'll take us right back there again. I know we get these little highlights of memory pieces we have, but just how they affected us. But a lot of the stuff that we've already gone through, we've just already passed on and forgotten about it. So it's interesting. Yeah. Everybody has their own experience with where they were at and what they were doing during that time. Okay. So you're living the dream.
Sorry, go ahead.
You guys were living the dream in Costa Rica.
Yeah, well, it was, we were, I mean, it was, there were a lot of roadblocks thrown up at us as well here, but I definitely think that we had it easier here. Part of the reason too was that at some point, once the lockdown ended, you could go to restaurants and they would be 50% capacity, because if you live here in Costa Rica or you visited, that most of the restaurants don't have walls. They're mostly just a roof, and a bar and seating. And so, that's, in terms of, the going through a pandemic and stuff, it's less prohibitive because the circulation of air is so much better.
For sure.
So we were able to get out to restaurants and, feel like human beings again, and have, we had our bubble. We had a couple, three sets of couples that kind of did everything together. We didn't mix with anybody else. And, once things loosened up, we got more freedom and stuff. And looking back on it now, I know a lot of people are upset and stuff looking back, especially if you lost a lot of money or people had complications with medicine they were on or whatever, or vaccines or whatever. But I think it's easy to Monday morning quarterback it now, looking back. But at the time, it was scary. Nobody knew what this thing was, how long it was going to last. The first round of it, too, was much stronger, obviously, than the other variants that came out later. It was uncharted waters. It was,
I remember being in the States, and I remember going to the grocery store one day, and for the first time ever, I was looking at the people, they had little dots and you could be this far away from each other, and everyone had to travel up this aisle this way and down this aisle this way. There was traffic patterns in the grocery store all of a sudden, which was okay. We weren't allowed to pass each other going opposite ways on the aisle. And I remember looking at these people going, and I was looking at them thinking, well, I wonder if they're sick. I wonder if they have COVID. I'm going, no, I just caught myself and went, I'm not going to live in this fear. I'm not going to live like this, looking at them if I thought about it The Walking Dead, right? I wonder if they have the virus.
Yeah.
I wonder if they have the virus. It was so stupid. I was like, oh my God, just buy your stupid groceries and move on with life. And if you get sick, you get sick. And if you die, you die. It was your time to die. Move on. I mean, I can't live in fear of something that hasn't happened. And so I just remember that even to this point, I remember that moment in the store when I was looking at them and I was deciding whether or not to be afraid of these people. And I was like, stop it. And then never again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was crazy times. I remember one thing I thought, does this make me a bad person? This would be a good time to get into the plexiglass business. All of a sudden, everywhere you went, there was just plexiglass everywhere. I'm like, whoever got, there's people who work in this business and been toiling away forever. And now it's boom days.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. Let's get back to Costa Rica post-COVID now. So you guys are back living your life. You really haven't so you're in your condo for a couple of years?
We lived in a condo here in Costa Rica for about 2.5 years.
But during that time you bought land and built a home. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's where we are currently living.
So tell me about that experience, because a lot of people are considering let me come down and buy land and build a house. But oh my gosh, I don't know anybody. I don't know any builders. I don't know the rules. What if I get screwed over? What happens? Those are the things that they're afraid of, but you've done it. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, our experience was great. And the main reason our experience was great is that the individual that we hired, the contractor to build our house, was somebody who was the son of our neighbor when we lived in our condo. We'd been over to their place for family get-togethers and dinners, and we knew them. And that contractor was also a partner in another business with two of our best friends here that we met down here, but are from Canada. So we felt like we knew this person, and that there was what's the word I'm looking for? That there was some accountability, or we assumed that there would be, right, because of our connections, and it turned out to be the case.
Good.
We built the house here during the dry season because, for people who don't know where we live here, we live in Guanacaste, which is a province that we're just south of Nicaragua, and we're about 45-minute drive from Liberia airport. Mm-hmm. And our province, this part of the province, is dry 6 months of the year. It doesn't rain at all. And then it's green season. It rains hard. So our house was built during those 6 months of the dry season, like right as it started.
So December to
like November to May.
November to May. Okay.
Yeah. And it was built in 6 months. And it was dry, so it's a concrete house like most of the houses down here. Mm-hmm. And so they were able to build it without being, impinged by the weather and the rain and stuff. And we were living here at this time in the condo, and I came by and, checked out what was going on every day without kind of getting in the way, but come by and I'd take pictures and document it, make sure that everything that was happening was, to plan. And we didn't have any issues. We were really we were fortunate, and we hired a good team.
So did you buy like just a city lot?
Yeah, we bought a lot. We bought an empty lot in here in Playa del Coco. It's like 5,000 square feet, okay. And built not a huge house. It's like a 3-bedroom house. One of the bedrooms is an office. It's about 1,200 square feet. It's got a nice sized yard, and then we built a rancho in the backyard. People down here know what a rancho is, just a covered outdoor area. Mm-hmm. And that's where we do a lot of our entertaining out there, because during the evenings the temperature is quite nice here, so we set up outside.
So where did you get your plans from, your house plans?
Pinterest. I found a house that had been built in Australia that I liked. And we presented it to our architect, and he created a Costa Rican version of it.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. And so did you find that the cost of building a house and the architecture and all of the permits that you probably had to get and the inspections that you had to get, did you find it was expensive, inexpensive? What did you think the pricing of it was?
We thought it was great because it's very expensive to build a house in Canada. The other thing I will caveat is that we did all this right before all the prices went up after COVID. So the labor is cheaper here than it is obviously in North America. The materials were cheaper, but within 2 months of us, I think by the time our house was finished being built, all the prices went up by about 30% of materials. Mm. So we were lucky we got in before that. It was just the timing of it.
Did you start building like in 21?
We were building in, everything's a bit of a blur now. It was 2 years ago. It was 2022.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we bought the building in the U.S. that my office is in right now is 10,000 square foot, and it was an event center. So it was like a big empty shell. It's a metal frame building, metals. Anyways, and we were at that point where not that necessarily, things were more expensive. So we were making decisions based on supply chain at that point. And that started here in the U.S. for us at about August, September 21. And so like a lot of like the lumber had gone through the roof. So like all of my interior walls are aluminum instead of stick. And so a lot of the things that we were having to look at, I mean, I bought 3 new huge heat and air package units for this building. And I was so lucky that I got them when I did, and they had them saved on a pallet somewhere for me for when I needed them. But we purchased them pretty quickly because everyone else was like, you're never going to get those in time. So the supply chain issue, was that drove prices up so high was, I can't imagine what it was like in Costa Rica as well.
Yeah.
So you guys got lucky. You got in there right before all of that crap happened.
Yeah. We've been lucky with a lot of the things that we've done here. Things have turned out well for us. You have a few little hiccups here and there, but we've been lucky. But part of it is we did a lot of research before we came down here. Anything I spend money, I do a lot of research on. Watched 1,000 YouTube videos of people who've come down and moved here and built and everything. And so much so to the point where when we finally moved down here and we'd walk around town, or I would constantly see people I had seen in videos on YouTube. I knew who a lot of the people were, having just done all that research. So there's that.
So one of the things that's been a common theme between expats that I've interviewed is the sense of community being so huge, right? That if you're wanting to succeed as an expat, meaning I want to live this lifestyle now, that building a community of people that you have for support is like so important. And it seems like during COVID, you started building that community already.
Well, we really lucked out, like I said, because the first people that we met who lived here were on that we went out on a catamaran. The week after we got married, we met this company or this couple. They're no longer in the real estate business, so I won't give them a shout out because but they became great friends. And then when they helped us buy our place, and then when we arrived here, they introduced us to all their people. So we had an instant community. And all of those people were able to give us all kinds of great advice, the basic stuff, because in North America, it's like, oh, your furnace breaks down or whatever. You used to look in the yellow pages, but you go online, you find somebody quickly. You don't do that in Costa Rica. You have to talk to people. You have to be a little bit more clever. You have to reach out to people. You got to ask questions. You got to jump on forums on Facebook or whatever. And so those are people who opened up a lot of doors for us. They got us, in touch with, who do we need to call because we're having a problem with insects in our place? Who do we need to call for air conditioner repairs? So we got set up with all of these people and this network very quickly, and then so we had that community of all these people who lived here already and had been here for a while, and so we got to lean on them for all their expertise, and then just the fact that we were being people of this age and participating in social media. We were always posting stuff that was going on in our lives. All of a sudden, people from around the world started reaching out to us saying, we're watching what you guys are doing in Costa Rica. We're thinking of doing something similar. Can we chat to you about how this all came together? Because obviously it's going well for you. You haven't lost your shirts. You're still there and all that kind of stuff. And then we became people that were, helpful to other people who wanted to come and partake in the same adventure that we were involved in. And
so have you had friends or family move down also?
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but friends and then friends of friends, it's about close to 10 friends of ours who bought places here.
Nice. Do you think they're there full time, or some of them are like they bought places there and they're splitting?
Some of them are like back and forth, 6 months and 6 months. Some of them just come down a couple months a year or a few weeks a year, and they're using that as an income property until they're retired, and they can come down and enjoy Costa Rica more fully. I'm close to 10
Wow.
people, I think. So now we have, during the high season, when we get-togethers here at the house, a lot of the time, a bunch of them are friends of ours from Toronto who work in the entertainment business I used to work with, who are now coming down and living part of the year here. And it's ironic too, because there are people we didn't get to see in Toronto that often because it's a big city. And whenever somebody calls you up and says, we should get together. It's always, oh, let's look at our schedules. And I think that's 2 months down the line. Whereas here in Costa Rica, you can text your friends and say, do you want to meet an hour? Because of the proximity, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta love that. I mean, that's really I believe that's what we're all put on here for anyways, is just number one, our job is to create. So what are we creating? Our job is constantly to be creating something. And then number two is community, is to be there for, whoever needs you in whatever capacity you can to help. And so, I think that a lot of times whenever I hear people that are not succeeding in their expat journey, I hear a lot of isolation. I hear that, I don't have any people here. Whatever it is, most of the time it has to do with their lack of, number one, getting involved, with whatever community you're in and literally contributing to it. So what are you creating? So, it's good to hear that. So you guys are working, you guys work remotely?
We do. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you do remotely?
So I'm a digital media producer, copywriter. So basically for the past 20 years, I've been producing video, the bulk of which is producing branded video for a massive media company in Canada.
Nice.
And then freelance work as well. Just, through people I know who work in the business, who every once in a while reach out and say, we need this produced for a project or that. And then my wife works for a company in Canada. She's a mortgage broker. And so she works for a company that takes care of people's mortgages in the western part of the country, in Saskatchewan and Alberta. And also because of their background in that, she and her boss and another friend of theirs who works in the mortgage business now have a boutique real estate company here in town, and are helping mortgage clients back in Canada who are interested in properties elsewhere purchase here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that brings me to a question I think we haven't even talked about yet. So then have you moved your banking to Costa Rica, or do you just work off of your Canadian banking and ATMs down there?
We do both. We have an account here, and then my wife has a business account for their business. Mm-hmm. And then we use the Canadian banks as well. It's a bit of a hodgepodge.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I know that banking in Costa Rica is, I think whenever I ask people, and I ask on every podcast, I ask what's something that you thought would be easy and it ended up being a nightmare. I mean, almost 8 out of 10 of them are like, banking. Banking is the most difficult thing here. And it's and I've done it. So I know, I know the day that we opened our bank account, my attorney's in San Isidro, and this was, probably 2017. And my attorney's in San Isidro. And so he set us up with an appointment at the bank, sent us all the documents that we would need there. And it was still a 6-hour ordeal.
Yeah. Well, you open up a bank account in Canada or the US, nobody ever mentions the word money laundering.
Right.
But that's the thing here. People talk about it all the time. It's an issue. So just about all of the hurdles that are thrown in front of you they're all about money laundering.
Right.
And the fear of that.
And I'm going to tell you, I watched the entire series of Ozark. And I still do not understand how to launder money. I understand whether, going, okay, I don't understand. So they're buying a funeral home. I'm not understanding this.
Yeah, I know.
I'm I think I need to go back to school if I'm going to learn anything about that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So what is something that you thought would be super easy and ended up being super difficult?
Well, I think we you and I chatted the other day. When you do a podcast, you do a little bit of a pre-chat. One of the things I mentioned to you was we didn't have a lot of problems with what we thought we might have issues with moving to another country, and that is not knowing a lot about how things work and maybe getting ripped off by somebody or whatever. We didn't have any issues like that. My biggest thing was just I'd never lived in a small town before. So I lived in big cities, and all of a sudden I was living in a town of, 5,000 people. And my big adjustment was just, managing that and having relationships with a lot of different people and always being, in people's peripheral. And Toronto's a big city. It's about 6 million people. So it's very easy to be anonymous, which has its benefits a lot of the time. And, its drawbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to be anonymous in a town like the one I live in now, the one Belinda and I live in. So that was a thing for us, I think.
That's funny because like I was born and raised in California, and we moved to Missouri. And so my kids were raised in a town, probably 3,500 people, maybe. And the great thing about that is when you're raising kids in a small town like that is the minute that they start thinking about getting in trouble, somebody is calling you and telling you. I mean,
Yeah.
before when they put a wad of chew in their mouth, before that first spit hits the ground, someone's mama is calling you and telling you, does Dallas chew? And I'm like, he didn't this morning. And
Yeah.
so it's really kind of funny because we used to say all the time, like on a Friday night, in Carl Junction, the town where my kids went to high school, you could literally rob everybody in town because nobody locked their doors and everybody was at the football game, right?
Yeah.
Like you could just go clean house if you wanted to. But there was only 2 roads in and somebody probably saw you. So you'd probably be dead by nightfall, but there's that too. So us growing up, us raising them in a small town, whenever I grew up in a small town in California, that was 600,000 people. Right. That was a smaller California community, Bakersfield was. And so my husband, the first time that we went to California, and he's from California too, but he's from Corona, and he hadn't been to Bakersfield before. And we flew in at night into LAX and then drove down to the valley. And the next morning, he's like going to take the rental car and he's going to go see my stepdad. And I'm like, do you know where you're going? And he's like, I mean, it's Bakersfield. How far could it be? And I mean, how hard could it be to find it? And I'm like, oh, there's like 600,000 people live here, man. And he's like, what? Yeah, like he, in his mind, because small town California is different than small town Missouri, right? So he like thought, how far could it be to find him? And so it's funny. So I get it. I get the community and there's a lot of things that we're probably not saying that come along with a small community too, is that everybody knows everybody's business, good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah. That was something I was not used to, for sure. And it's it's all part of the learning curve.
Yeah.
But going back to sort of the stuff that sticks out in your mind, this, and a lot of the people who look into coming down to visit here, who do their research, find this out quickly. Is the thing that sends expats home faster than anything else is when people come down here. And, especially A-type personalities come down here and they expect to have everything done yesterday. Mm-hmm. Like that just drives people bananas. Mm-hmm. And that's usually what sends people home. But, we kind of set that in our mind that, there was going to be a different pace to life. And that's part of the reason that people come down here. And that's part of the reason why, there's an area not far from here that's a blue zone. And, if you want to live that way, you got to live that way. You can't come down here and be your old North American self and see life the way you did back home, because it's not going to work for you.
Right. Well, and that's the good thing about it too, is that, a couple of the interviews that I've had, they literally said, please just analyze what type of person you are. So like, I wouldn't think of somebody like from another country moving to the United States and going, and just be like, I'm going to move to the United States. Okay. But where are you going to move? Right.
Yeah.
Are you a city person? Are you a country person? Are you a mountain person? Do you like the winters? Do you like the beaches? What do you like? Right. You need to determine that about yourself first before you just decide to move to a country. So visit the different parts and determine what type of person you are first. And then, do I need more people? Do I need less people? And then make those decisions based on who you are, instead of, I went on vacation and I really loved it here. But if you're not that type of person, if you hate burning your ass off every damn day, you're not going to want to be in Guanacaste during the high season, right? Because it's hot as hell, right? And if you really, really dig, having that access to the beach, you're not going to want to be up at Tinamaste or any of those mountainous towns where you got to come down a switchback like this all the way down. That's going to take you 2 hours to get down to where you need to be. So I think a lot of people needing to determine who they are as a person before they decide to relocate. I mean, I think about like, are you going to live in Dallas, Texas? Or are you going to live in Casper, Wyoming? You know what I'm saying? Like, think about the things like that before you decide to come down and go, who am I really? Like, where do I thrive? I thrive in solitude. Then man, let's find you that place. That's where you need to be.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that a lot of people, they hear pura vida, pura vida, pura vida. I'm going to go down there and live there and enjoy pura vida and vitamin D from the sun, and everything's going to be spectacular. But at the end of the day, the old expression comes to mind: wherever you go, there you are. If you've got all kinds of issues, if you've got anxieties and mental health issues or whatever, just carrying around baggage you haven't figured out, you're going to deal with it in Costa Rica as well. you
Absolutely.
know. So
I know that one other thing I want to talk about with you too, whether you are okay talking about it or not, is I know that like since you've been down there, you've gone through a health scare.
yeah.
And so you've traveled back to Canada for healthcare because of that. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, well, so I'm a voiceover artist, as I mentioned earlier, and I guess it was 2 summers ago. It was sort of towards the end of the pandemic. It was so. What are we now? It was summer of 2022. My voice started changing, and of course, I noticed that right away because I speak as a primary way of communication, and so I ended up going back to Canada and getting some appointments and found out pretty quickly that I had throat cancer. And
first of all, congratulations for taking control of your health that quickly, because typically in adults, and not just adult men, but in adults, we tend to write it out a little bit, see if it's going to get better, see what's going to go on. But so bravo for fast acting.
Yeah, well, for the first while, I thought maybe I've got a virus or this or that, and nobody wants to sort of think that the worst case scenario is what's happening. But I found out pretty quickly. In Canada, we have universal health care, and I got if you there's a lot of debate about universal health care versus private and all that kind of stuff, and the system in Canada is great. It's got its issues as well. But if you have something critical, dangerous, you get cancer, you have a heart attack or whatever, you get something serious, you get thrown into the system and you get taken care of right away. Like it's high priority. So within no time, I was getting, everything put in place to figure out what they were going to do. At first, they were going to go at it with surgery. They called it precancerous. I don't like that term because it's cancer. It was there. It was just the beginning, and it hadn't spread anywhere else. So we went at it. I had a great team. I went to a cancer center in downtown Toronto. It's one of the best in the world, called Princess Margaret Cancer Center. Nice. And I ended up going there and getting 33 radiation treatments.
Wow.
And I'd go in every day for a radiation treatment. They take about 2 minutes. And on the bed, once you get, there and settled in, and did that. And slowly but surely, my voice came back. It pretty much sounds like it did before.
Good.
Takes a little while for my voice to warm up in the morning. And then if I'm out, like if I go out to a bar with friends or whatever, and everybody, there's a lot of music, loud music, my voice will get tired because of the radiation. But I'm pretty lucky that's what I'm dealing with, is just sort of my voice is, my throat is a little more tender than it was before, I guess is the best way of putting it. But I'm healthy, and actually I'm going back in a few weeks to do follow-up appointments to make sure everything is still good.
Good. That's what I was going to ask. Like, how often do you have to go back and have them take a look and make sure everything is as it should be?
Yeah, it's 6 months, which is, right around the same sort of time we usually head back anyways. So like I said, I'll be back there for a bunch of appointments with different doctors in a few weeks to make sure everything's going all right. But everything feels good, so I'm optimistic.
Good.
Of course, before I had left anyways, they had already done a bunch of tests and said that they couldn't see anything, and it looked like it had before. So
they didn't have to do surgery at all?
No, just the radiation. And the reason that they went for the radiation was because they knew that I did voice work, and they said, the likelihood of your voice sounding like it did before is better with the radiation than going with surgery.
That's good that they gave you those options, because I think a lot of times they just tend to go in first and slice and then go, sorry, your life's different now.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Good medical team. I love to hear that.
Yeah. No,
so let's talk about one more thing before we get off of here. And that is, we've already talked about what thing did you think would be easy? What did you think would be difficult, but ended up being easier than you thought it would be?
What did I think would be difficult, but was easier than I thought.
Right. So we're going to Costa Rica. I anticipate the struggle with this. What? Anything?
I don't know if I thought about much about what's going to be difficult. We met a lot of people quickly. That was fantastic. A lot of doors were opened in that regard. The fact that we had steadied ourselves for the idea that things are not going to be, that there's going to be a lot of mañana when dealing with people in Costa Rica in terms of getting things done. We kind of got ourselves ready for that psychologically. So that was not a huge issue. There are other things that are issues. We had a massive fire here last Friday, which is not something that we would have dealt with
in the town.
Well, it was a brush fire that happened. We live sort of on the outskirts of town, and we're surrounded by a lot of property that has not been built on and has got a lot of vegetation, which now after 6 months is really dry. And oftentimes at this part of the time of the year, like in Northern California or California period, and other parts of the world, we get brush fires here. And a lot of them are because of controlled burns that become uncontrolled very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's what happened. But last Friday, I was in the bedroom, lying in bed with my phone and just going through my emails. And Belinda, my wife, was yelling at me that there was a fire outside. So I ran out to the pool area, and I could hear the crackling on the other side of our fence. And we got these bushes that go down, limoncillos,
right?
That go down the side of our fence. And I could hear the crackling, and I could tell the fire wasn't very far away. So we ran off and, put some nozzles on our hoses. We got 2 different hoses, one at each side of the house. We were going to go around the fence and fight this thing. Within 2 minutes, you could see that the flames on the other side of the fence were about at least 12 or 15 feet high.
Wow.
And this thing was just raging, and it was terrifying. And I thought, are we going to lose our house? Mm. And so we just kind of didn't really think. We just went. We started spraying the thing took about 2 hours to put the fire out. And then the fire department showed up shortly after we had put out the bulk of the fire. And, that's one thing, is that, the tax base in Toronto is massive. And there are fire departments on every second block. And right. So, that's well funded. In the country like this, the tax base is not the same as back home. And there are, the firehouses are far and few between, and it is what it is.
Yeah, mostly out in the country, even here in Missouri, they have a volunteer fire department between the cities because the counties don't have it. And you may have a city, and then you may have 20 miles of county that don't have it. So those are all volunteer. And when I was 15 or 16, our house caught on fire, and we were outside the city limits. And so the volunteer fire department showed up. And it's I'm not even kidding you when I tell you this guy got out, and he's like, dude, I forgot my hoses. It's a big damn deal. And so then luckily one of the city trucks came out. They weren't supposed to, but they came out, and they had an extra set of hoses on there. So between the two of them, they put that fire out. But I get it. I mean, we live that in rural America sometimes too.
Yeah.
Well, David, it was a pleasure to chat with you today. I'm just always so excited to talk to everyone who has made the journey. And for any of you who are considering, Costa Rica as an expat life for yourself, tune in to people like David and any of the other people that have been a guest on my show. Reach out to them. I'm going to put links to reach David in the show notes below. But subscribe, share these with your friends. You know that if you're thinking about it, your friends are thinking about it too. And as much good information as everybody can get will make the transition for you easier. And heck, you may end up moving to, Playa del Coco, and you already have a community already there. So I wish everybody pura vida. David, I wish you pura vida also.
You too.
And everybody have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks very much. It was great being on your show, and it was really a pleasure to chat with you.
I love it too.
All right. Thank you.